And then I went back home, which this is my house, or where I lived, and this was my little bedroom window, the one that I would crawl out of at night time to do my dastardly deeds. I went home and I told my mother and my older sister, and if any one of you gentlemen have had an older sister in your life, you've probably noticed that they know all the angles and they know everything and they tell you what you are supposed to do. I was told by my older sister for years, don't do this or do this and do etc., etc. Well, in that particular, when I came home that morning, she reamed me out for having been in the intersection and endangering everybody's lives, and she was probably very correct in that. And she said, don't you do anything like this. And my mother, of course, said, yes, absolutely, what she's saying is correct. And I learned from then on, boy, the way to stay in this, if you're going to do anything interesting, don't tell a word of what you are going to be doing. And I absolutely, from that day on, from the 9th of April, 1940, I just simply clamped down, and I never told my friends, I never told my father or my mother or anybody what I was up to, because I realized that if I do, they're going to tell me, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. And so I learned from that particular operation that you don't tell, keep a secret. And very shortly thereafter, my best friend, who had these 12 Norwegian books that are called Guttebøkene, the Blue Boys books, the book number 4 was called The Spy in Norwegian, Spionen. And I read this book frontwards and backwards several times, and I decided I am going to be a spy. And so I am going to be on the intelligence net, and I'm going to do something against the Germans if there's whatever happens. So the next thing then that happened was the fact that in nighttime I would always lock my door on the inside, and then when I was ready to do my dastardly act, as Carolyn calls it, I thought it was a rather spiritual, a very enlightening act. I would get out of the window, stand on the windowsill of the kitchen window, which was right below me, and then inch my way over to the downspout that was on the right of the corner of the building, and just simply go down the downspout and then go on about my business, doing my as Carolyn would call it, dastardly acts. And then I would, when I come home again, I would crawl back up again the same way and get back into my window, and then in the morning, of course, I would come out, unlock my door, and come down and have breakfast and be a very normal type of fellow. Well, after that particular day then, the next day I went out and called across the fence in the back of our yard to my very good friend Knut Levanger, who was about 8 months older than I was. He was a strapping youth at the time. Of course, when you're 11, a guy who's 12 years old looks to you like he's muscular and much bigger and everything, and Knut was. I decided we should go on a bicycle tour around the Lindman curve and see what else is going on. And I told him how about my experience up in the intersection, etc., and he thought, well, that sounded very exciting, etc. Let's see what else we can get into. So a little bit further over on the backside of the Lindman curve, there was a steep road that went up in a ravine, and in that ravine there was a bunch of trees, and it was maybe more or less a place where neighbors had been dumping old furniture and other things. And there were several trees there, so I climbed up in the trees. Now we're sitting in the treetop, and we're watching how German J252 aircraft was coming in toward Fornebu Airport. Well, we didn't know it at the time, but they were coming in, of course, to take over Oslo and whatnot else, but we could see them coming in, and they were coming in maybe 12, 15 of them, and as they were coming in, the Norwegian fighter planes were going up after them, trying to shoot them down. Well, this to us was really exciting, of course, and the thing that was very exciting was that very soon these bullets were beginning to go through the treetop above us into the field right behind us, or into the Skråningen, the backside of where we were in the trees in the front, and there was rubble in the back, and we could hear these bullets hitting the ground. Now we're in a real exciting period. We decided that, well, if we're not careful, we're going to be ventilated. And then we decided it was time to get back down to the tree. At that particular time, the next thing we heard was that one of these Ju-52 aircraft happened to be shot down, or at least went down. If it was out of gas or whether it was being shot down, we don't know. But it turned out that that was only about 3/4 of a mile from where we were located. We could see the spot, and we see this mushroom of black smoke. And of course, if you're at 11, 12 years old, this is exciting. And we said to ourselves, well, at least I said to Knut, let's go down there, race down there and look at this. We will see what we can find. Well, of course, here this airplane is being burned up, and we, by this time, decided, boy, this is exciting. Well, Knut decided that this was a little bit too much for him. His mother had told him he wasn't supposed to do these things, so he said, we better be careful and not go down there. And I said, well, my mother doesn't know anything about this, so I don't need to tell anybody, and I'm not going to tell anybody. We're going to go down there. So we went down there, and there's when I found the first downed airplane. And of course, we went around there and we discovered that there were 16 men that had been killed, burned up. And this was the first time I saw a head that had been sliced open. And I discovered then that brains looked like macaroni and cheese. This has been with me my entire life as well. And when you're that young, these things have a certain impression on you, and you retain them a long time. Well, we saw arms and legs that had been blown off. These poor people who had been in the airplanes, they were located somewhere in the flower beds around there, etc. And we saw weapons, and of course we decided, oh boy, we can now pick up a couple of weapons. Well, we had them in our hands, but they turned out to have been so burned that they were not in operational shape, and so we decided to leave them. We just picked up some tins with some stuff, and then we decided by now we could hear the sirens coming of somebody, and we don't know exactly whether they were Germans or Norwegian police, and we weren't interested in being caught, and so we decided, okay, we'll get out of there. So we got out of there, and we got home, and then the next thing then that happened was the fact that we went home, and I went back up to my room again, and I searched it around to make sure I had taken out things if anybody would come into our house. In those days, what happened was the fact that the Germans and the Norwegians came out with all sorts of regulations that such and such is illegal to retain, and such is illegal to have in your possession. So I went home and I went through all of my things and made sure that I had nothing that was illegal in there that could cause a stir in my family.